Park Do-hyun was nobody special. He knew this about himself the way he knew the sky was blue and water was wet. It was simply a fact of his life. He was 32 years old and worked as a night shift security guard at a warehouse in Seoul. His job was simple. He sat in a small room with 6 monitors and watched for trouble. Trouble never came. The warehouse stored car parts, and nobody wanted to steal car parts at 3 in the morning. Most nights, Do-hyun ate instant noodles, drank cheap coffee, and read old books on his phone. Sometimes he walked around the parking lot to stretch his legs. Sometimes he talked to the stray cat that lived behind the dumpster. He had named the cat General, even though it was missing one ear, and looked more like a soldier who had lost too many battles. His life was quiet. His apartment was small. He had no girlfriend, no wife, no children. His parents had died in a car accident when he was young, and his grandmother had raised him. She had passed away 3 years ago, and since then, Do-hyun had felt like he was simply waiting for something. He did not know what. The night everything changed started like every other night. Do-hyun arrived at the warehouse at 10 in the evening. He nodded to the day guard, a man named Kwon who never said more than 2 words. He made his coffee. He sat down in his chair. He watched the monitors show empty hallways and quiet loading docks. At midnight, he went outside for his walk. The autumn air was cold and smelled like rain. Do-hyun pulled his jacket tighter and looked up at the sky. The stars were hidden behind clouds. The city lights made the darkness orange and strange. He was thinking about his grandmother. She used to tell him stories about the war, about the hard times when she was young. She would say, Do-hyun, life will test you. It will push you down. But you get up. Always get up. That is what it means to be human. He had never understood what she meant. His life had never tested him. Nothing had ever pushed him down. Then the light came. It appeared without warning. One moment, Do-hyun was standing alone in the parking lot. The next moment, a beam of blue light fell from the sky like a waterfall made of ice. It was so bright that he could not see. It was so cold that he could not breathe. He tried to run. His legs would not move. He tried to scream. His voice would not come. The light pulled him upward. He felt his feet leave the ground. He felt the world disappear below him. And then there was nothing but darkness. When Do-hyun woke up, he was lying on a hard floor that felt like glass. His head hurt. His body felt strange, like he had been taken apart and put back together wrong. He opened his eyes and saw a ceiling that glowed with soft purple light. He was in a room. No, not a room, a cell. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal, and they hummed with a low sound that he could feel in his chest. He was not alone. There were other people in the cell with him. 11 others, he counted. Men and women, young and old, all wearing different clothes from different places. A woman in a nurse's uniform, a man in farmer's overalls, a young girl in a university jacket, an old man with military tattoos on his arms. They were all waking up, all looking around with the same fear in their eyes. "Where are we?" someone asked in Korean. "I do not know," Do-hyun said. His voice came out rough and weak. A woman near the crystal wall stood up. She was young, maybe 28, with short black hair and sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. She wore a jacket with a research institute logo on it. "We were taken," she said. Her voice was calm, but Do-hyun could see her hands shaking. "I was on a boat near Busan. I saw the light. I woke up here. I was in my home in Daegu," said the nurse, an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "My grandchildren were sleeping. I hope they are safe." One by one, they shared their stories. The farmer was from a small village in the countryside. The university student was from Incheon. The old soldier was from Gwangju. They came from different places, different lives, but they all had the same story. The light, the cold, the darkness, and then this cell. "My name is Yoon Nari," said the woman with short hair. "I am a marine biologist. I study the ocean. She looked at Do-hyun. Who are you? Park Do-hyun, he said. I am a security guard. I watch monitors. Nari almost smiled. Then watch carefully now. We need to understand what is happening. Before anyone could say more, the wall of the cell changed. A section of crystal became clear like window glass, and Do-hyun saw their captors for the first time. They were not human. The creatures were tall, perhaps 7 feet, with silver skin that shimmered like metal. They had 4 arms, 2 on each side, and their eyes were large and purple, like broken pieces of gemstone. They wore robes of dark blue material that moved like water. Do-hyun felt his heart stop. His mind could not understand what he was seeing. Aliens. They were aliens. Real aliens. One of the creatures pressed something against the wall, and suddenly Do-hyun heard a voice in his head. No. Not in his head. The voice came from a small device that had appeared on his neck, stuck to his skin like a metal insect. You are specimens, the voice said. It was cold and flat, without emotion. You are being transported to the central worlds. Do not resist. Resistance is not useful. Specimens? Nari stepped forward, her fear replaced by anger. We are not specimens. We are people. You cannot take us. The alien looked at her with its strange eyes. For a moment, Do-hyun thought he saw something in that look. Not cruelty. Not hatred. Something else. Fear. The alien was afraid. You will understand soon, it said. Then the wall became solid crystal again, and the aliens walked away. The journey lasted 3 weeks. The humans were given food that tasted like nothing, and water that was too clean. They were given no answers to their questions. The guards came and went, always watching, always silent. During those weeks, Do-hyun and Nari became the leaders of their small group. Do-hyun was surprised by this. He had never led anything in his life, but someone had to keep people calm. Someone had to ration the food and make sure everyone slept. Someone had to stop the fights that started when fear became too heavy. You are good at this, Nari told him one night. They were sitting in the corner of the cell, speaking quietly while the others slept. I am just doing what needs to be done, Do-hyun said. That is leadership, Nari replied. Most people run from what needs to be done. You walk toward it. Do-hyun thought about his grandmother again. Get up, she had said. Always get up. Maybe this was the test she had talked about. Maybe his life had finally pushed him down. He did not know if he could get up, but he knew he had to try. On the last day of the journey, the ship began to slow. Through a small window in the ceiling, Do-hyun saw a planet appear. It was massive, covered in swirling clouds of gold and white. Lights from cities sparkled on its surface like stars that had fallen to the ground. That is where they are taking us, Nari said. She stood beside him, her face pale. That is their world. The old soldier, whose name was Han Tae-yong, joined them at the window. I have seen many things in my life, he said. I have been to war. I have watched friends die. But this, he shook his head. This I never expected. The ship descended through the clouds, and Park Do-hyun, the security guard from Seoul who was nobody special, prepared to meet whatever waited below. He was afraid. He was more afraid than he had ever been, but he got up. He always got up. That was what it meant to be human. The city was impossible. That was the only word Do-hyun could find as the guards marched the humans through streets that seemed to break every rule of nature. Buildings rose into the sky like frozen waves, their surfaces bending and curving in ways that hurt his eyes. The ground beneath his feet was made of something that felt like stone, but glowed with soft light, and hummed like a sleeping animal. Everywhere he looked, there were aliens, not just the silver-skinned creatures who had captured them. There were others. Short beings with skin like tree bark, and eyes that burned like small suns. Tall, thin creatures that moved like water flowing uphill. Things with too many legs and things with no legs at all. A galaxy of life, all pressed together in this one city, all stopping to stare at the 12 humans walking through their streets, but they did not stare with curiosity. They did not stare with hatred or fear. They stared with something that looked like wonder. Do-hyun heard whispers through his translation device. The words came in fragments, pieces of conversations from beings he could not understand. The enduring ones, children of the collapse. They survived. They actually survived. What are they talking about? Nari walked beside him, her eyes scanning everything, trying to understand. What does that mean? I do not know, Do-hyun said. But the words made something cold move in his stomach. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than he had thought. Much bigger. The guards led them toward the center of the city, where a tower rose above everything else. It was not like the other buildings. It was straight and tall, made of black stone that did not glow. It looked ancient. It looked powerful. It looked like the kind of place where kings and queens made decisions that changed worlds. The Imperial Spire, one of the guards said. His voice was flat, but Do-hyun thought he heard something underneath it. Respect, maybe even fear. You will meet her eternal radiance. You will bow. You will not speak unless spoken to. Her eternal radiance? The old soldier, Han Taiyang, let out a small laugh. Even our kings did not give themselves such names. The guard's purple eyes fixed on him. Your kings did not rule 400 star systems. Your kings did not live for 1,000 years. Show respect, or you will learn why our Empress is feared. The humans fell silent after that. Inside the tower, everything changed. The noise of the city disappeared. The air became cool and still, like the air inside an old temple. The walls were covered with images that moved, showing scenes of space battles and strange ceremonies and planets Do-hyun had never seen. They climbed stairs. They walked through halls. They passed guards who stood like statues, their silver skin gleaming in the low light. Finally, they reached a door that was 3 times taller than any human. The door opened without sound, and the humans were pushed into the room beyond. Do-hyun stopped breathing. The throne room was the largest space he had ever seen. The ceiling disappeared into darkness far above. The floor was polished like a mirror, reflecting the hundreds of lights that floated in the air like captive stars. On the walls, more images moved, showing the history of an empire that had existed since before humans had learned to write. At the far end of the room, raised on a platform of white crystal, sat the Empress. She was magnificent. She was terrifying, 8 feet tall, even while sitting. Her silver skin was darker than the guards, almost gray, and covered with patterns that seemed to shift and change. Her face was perfect in a way that made Do-hyun's mind hurt, like looking at a painting that was too beautiful to be real. She wore robes that changed color as she moved, flowing from purple to gold to colors that had no names in any human language. Her eyes were the worst. They were not purple like the others. They were white, completely white, and they seemed to look through him, into him, past everything he had ever been. 12 advisors stood around her throne. They were all different species, creatures from worlds Do-hyun could not imagine. They watched the humans with expressions of curiosity, suspicion, and something else. Something that looked almost like hope. Kneel, a guard commanded. The humans were pushed to their knees. The stone floor was cold and hard. Do-hyun's heart pounded so loud he was sure everyone could hear it. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Empress sat on her throne, still as a statue, her white eyes moving from one human to the next. Do-hyun felt her gaze pass over him, and he felt small, smaller than he had ever felt, like an ant looking up at the sun. Then the Empress stood. The movement was so sudden that the advisors stepped back. Whispers filled the hall. The guards shifted, uncertain. The Empress descended from her throne. Her robes flowed behind her like a river of light. Her steps made no sound on the crystal floor. She walked across the hall, past advisors and guards, past all the creatures who had ruled beside her for centuries. She stopped in front of Park Do-hyun. He could not look at her. He kept his eyes on the floor, on the reflection of the lights above, on anything but those terrible white eyes. "Look at me," the Empress said. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. It was not the voice of a tyrant. It was the voice of someone very old and very tired. Do-hyun raised his head. The Empress was looking down at him, and in her white eyes, he saw something he never expected: tears. The Empress of 400 star systems, the ruler who had lived for 1,000 years, was crying, and then she bowed. It was not a small bow, not a nod of the head. She bent at the waist, deep and slow, until her forehead nearly touched her clasped hands. It was the kind of bow a servant gave to a master, the kind of bow a child gave to an elder. The hall exploded with noise. Advisors shouted. Guards moved forward, then stopped, confused. Somewhere, something crashed to the floor. The other humans made sounds of shock and fear. Nari grabbed Do-hyun's arm. Her fingers dug into his skin. "What is happening?" she whispered. "Why is she bowing to you?" Do-hyun could not answer. He could not think. He could not breathe. "Your radiance." An advisor, a creature with blue scales and too many teeth, pushed forward. "This is not proper. They are primitives. They are nothing." The Empress straightened. She turned to face the advisor, and all the gentleness disappeared from her face. What remained was cold and hard and very, very dangerous. "Nothing?" Her voice was no longer soft. It filled the hall like thunder. "You call them nothing?" The advisor stepped back, his scales turning pale. The Empress turned to face all of them, the advisors and guards and humans alike. 12,000 years ago," she said, "our ancestors faced extinction. The hollow tide came from the edge of the galaxy and destroyed everything in its path. Stars died. Planets became dust. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years were erased in moments." She paused. The hall was silent. "Our ancestors had technology. They had fleets. They had knowledge beyond anything these humans possess. And they nearly died. All of them. All of us." She pointed at the humans, but on a small planet at the edge of the galaxy, a species with no technology, no fleets, no knowledge of what was coming, survived. They did not just survive. They helped. They sent signals into space. Patterns of sound and light that reached our dying ships. They saved us without knowing it, without asking for anything in return. Her white eyes found Do-hyun again. "These are the children of that species, the enduring ones, the ones who refused to die when everything said they should." She bowed again, not as deep, but with the same respect. "Rise, child of Earth," she said. "Your kind owes us nothing. It is we who owe you everything." Do-hyun stood on shaking legs. Around him, the other humans rose too, their faces showing the same confusion and fear he felt. "I do not understand," he said. His voice was rough and weak. "We are just people. We are nobody special." The Empress smiled. It was a sad smile, full of old pain. "That," she said, "is exactly what makes you special." She turned and walked back to her throne. The hall remained silent. The advisors exchanged looks of shock and worry. The guards stood frozen, not knowing what to do. Nari leaned close to Do-hyun. "What did we get pulled into?" He had no answer. He was just a security guard from Seoul. He watched monitors for a living. He ate instant noodles and talked to stray cats. But now an alien empress had bowed to him, and nothing would ever be the same. He looked up at the throne, at the ancient ruler watching him with those terrible white eyes, and he understood one thing clearly: whatever was coming next, he was not ready. But then, he thought, nobody ever was. The private chamber was smaller than Do-hyun expected. After the massive throne room, he had imagined the Empress would live among endless halls and golden walls. Instead, she brought him to a simple room with plain furniture and windows that looked out at the alien city below. Only 4 humans had been invited: Do-hyun, Nari, the old soldier Han Tae-yang, and the elderly nurse, Baek Jisoo, whose kind eyes seemed to calm everyone around her. The Empress sat in a chair that looked almost normal. She had removed part of her flowing robes, and she looked smaller now, less like a goddess and more like a very old woman carrying a very heavy weight. "You have questions," she said. It was not a question. "Many questions," Nari answered. Her voice was still sharp, still defiant. Do-hyun admired her courage. "You said we saved your ancestors. You said you owe us everything. But you took us from our homes like animals. You called us specimens." The Empress lowered her head. "Yes. That was wrong. My people have been wrong about many things. She waved her hand, and the air in the middle of the room came alive with light. Images appeared, floating like ghosts. Stars and planets and things Do-hyun could not name. "Let me show you the truth," she said. "The truth that my empire has hidden for 12,000 years. The images changed. Do-hyun saw a galaxy, billions of stars spinning slowly in the darkness. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. Then something came from the edge. It was not a ship. It was not a weapon. It was a wave. A wall of darkness that moved through space like a tide through water. Where it touched stars, they flickered and died. Where it touched planets, they crumbled into dust. Where it touched life, there was nothing left." "The hollow tide," the Empress said. Her voice was heavy with old pain. "We do not know where it came from. We do not know what created it. We only know what it did." The images showed ships trying to escape, whole fleets running from the darkness, cities on alien worlds emptying as people tried to flee to anywhere at all. "Our ancestors had technology that you cannot imagine," the Empress continued. "Shields that could stop asteroid impacts. Weapons that could crack planets. Medicine that could extend life for thousands of years. None of it mattered. The tide was not a physical thing. It was entropy itself. The end of order. The death of everything." Grandmother Jisoo spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft but steady. "How did anyone survive?" The Empress looked at her with something like gratitude. "A few species found ways. The Kreth built hives deep underground and slept for centuries until the tide passed. The Morali retreated to underwater caves where the tide was weakest. My people, the Vallani, developed shields that could slow the entropy, but not stop it. We survived, but barely. Millions became thousands. Thousands became hundreds." She paused. The images faded, and then there were the humans. New images appeared. A blue planet floating in space. Oceans and continents and swirling white clouds. Earth. Do-hyun's breath caught in his chest. "Your world was primitive then," the Empress said. "Your ancestors lived in caves and hunted with spears. They had no technology. No shields. No ships to escape. When the tide reached your system, we thought your species would disappear like so many others." The image showed the tide approaching Earth. The dark wave moving toward the small blue world. Do-hyun felt his hands tighten into fists. But something happened that we did not expect. The tide hit Earth. The image flickered. Do-hyun expected to see destruction, death, the end of everything. Instead, he saw life. "Your ancestors survived," the Empress said. "Not all of them. Many died. But enough lived. They hid in caves during the worst of it. They helped each other. They shared food and water. They refused to give up." She leaned forward, her white eyes fixed on Do-hyun. "Do you understand what I am saying? Every other intelligent species in the galaxy, with all their technology and knowledge, nearly went extinct. But humans, with nothing but stone tools and fire, survived through pure stubbornness." "How?" Nari asked. "That does not make sense. If the tide destroyed advanced civilizations, how could primitive humans survive?" "Your bodies," the Empress said. "Human biology is different from anything else in the galaxy. Your cells repair themselves faster than any other species. Your organs have backups and redundancies that make no logical sense. Your minds can adapt to trauma that would destroy other intelligent beings." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at her city. "We studied your kind for centuries after the tide passed. We found that humans could survive radiation that would kill a Vellani in hours. Humans could adapt to temperature changes that would stop a Kreth's heart. Humans could lose blood, lose limbs, lose everything, and still keep going. She turned back to face them. Your species is the most stubborn, most adaptable, most impossible form of life in the galaxy. You are survivors. Not because of what you built, but because of what you are. Han Taeyang, the old soldier, laughed quietly. My drill instructor used to say Koreans are the most stubborn people on Earth. Now you are telling me all humans are stubborn. Among the most stubborn beings in the universe, the Empress confirmed. There was no humor in her voice. But there is more. The images changed again. Now they showed ships floating in space, damaged and dying. Vellani ships, Do-hyun realized. Ancient vessels from 12,000 years ago. During the tide, when our shields were failing and our people were dying, we received signals from space. Patterns of sound and light that came from your world. Your ancestors were sending signals, trying to communicate with the sky. They did not know anyone was listening. The image showed the signals reaching the Vellani ships, showed engineers working desperately, using the patterns to adjust their failing shields. Those signals saved us, the Empress said. The patterns your ancestors sent, by pure accident, contained mathematical sequences that helped us calibrate our shield technology. Humans saved the Vellani without ever knowing it. Silence filled the room. Do-hyun tried to understand what he was hearing. His ancestors, people who lived in caves and hunted with spears, had accidentally saved an alien empire. It was impossible. It was ridiculous, but the Empress was not lying. He could see that in her white eyes. So why hide us? Nari demanded. If humans saved you, why did you keep our existence a secret? Why did you never contact us? The Empress's face changed. The weight on her shoulders seemed to grow heavier. Shame, she said quietly. Our ancestors were ashamed. They had built empires that spanned star systems. They had conquered species and ruled worlds. They thought they were the greatest civilization in the galaxy. She sat down heavily in her chair, and then primitives with stone tools survived what nearly destroyed them. Primitives saved them with accidental signals. Our ancestors could not accept this truth. So they buried it. They quarantined your world. They erased humans from the records, and told themselves it was for your protection. But it was not for our protection, Grandmother Jisoo said. Her voice was sad but not angry. It was for their pride. Yes. The Empress did not look away from the accusation. My ancestors were cowards. And every generation since has continued their cowardice. We told ourselves that humans were too primitive, too dangerous, too different. We convinced ourselves that keeping you isolated was right. She looked at Do-hyun directly. I continued this lie for 800 years of my reign. I told myself I would fix it eventually. I told myself there would be a better time. Her voice broke slightly, but now there is no more time. The hollow tide is returning. The room went cold. Do-hyun felt Nari's hand grab his arm again. What do you mean returning? Han Taeyang asked. The old soldier's voice was steady, but his face was pale. Our observatories detected it 50 years ago, the Empress said. Coming from the edge of the galaxy, just like before. The tide is approaching. And this time, we have no signals from humans to save us. This time, we need more than accidents. She stood and faced the four humans, the ancient ruler looking at them with desperation in her white eyes. I need you to help me unite my empire. I need you to show my people what humans are. I need you to be symbols of survival, of hope, of everything we lost when we hid your world from the galaxy. She reached out and took Do-hyun's hands in hers. Her skin was cold, but her grip was strong. I know I have no right to ask. I know my people have wronged yours. But I am asking anyway, because I have no other choice. Do-hyun looked at the Empress. He looked at Nari, at Taeyang, at Grandmother Jisoo. He thought about his grandmother, about her stories of survival, about getting up when life pushed you down. What exactly do you want us to do? He asked. The Empress smiled, and for the first time, the weight on her shoulders seemed a little lighter. "First," she said, "I want to tell the galaxy the truth. And then I want you to help me save it." 3 months had passed since the Empress revealed the truth, and Park Do-hyun was tired of being looked at. Everywhere he went, aliens stared. They bowed. They reached out to touch him like he was a religious artifact. They whispered prayers in languages his translation device could not fully capture. The enduring one. The child of Earth. The survivor. He was not any of those things. He was a security guard who missed instant noodles and wanted to go home. "You need to eat something," Nari said. She sat across from him in the quarters they had been given. A plate of alien food in front of her. The food looked like purple rice and smelled like nothing at all. "I am not hungry." "You have not been hungry for 3 days." She pushed the plate toward him. "The galaxy thinks you are some kind of immortal survivor. It would be embarrassing if you starved to death." Despite everything, Do-hyun almost smiled. Nari had a way of making terrible situations feel smaller. She had been doing it since they first met in that crystal cell on the ship. "I did not ask for this," he said quietly. "I am not a symbol. I am not a leader. I am just a man who watched monitors for a living." "I know." Nari's voice softened. "But nobody asks for what matters. It just happens. And you deal with it." A knock at the door interrupted them. It was one of the Empress's servants, a small creature with green skin and 4 eyes that blinked independently. "The Empress requests your presence," it said. "There is trouble." There was always trouble now. The Empress had announced the truth about humanity 3 months ago. She had broadcast it to every corner of her empire, to 400 star systems and 12 subject species. She had shown the evidence, the ancient records, the proof that humans had saved the galaxy. Some had believed her. Some had celebrated. But others had been angry. Very angry. 3 of the Dominion's subject species were now in open rebellion. The Morali, an amphibious race with memories of their own near extinction, refused to accept that primitives had saved them. The Kreth, insectoids who valued strength above all else, saw humans as weak creatures, unworthy of respect. And a faction of Villani themselves, proud nobles who could not accept their ancestors' shame, were calling for the Empress to be removed. The empire was tearing itself apart. And the hollow tide was still coming. Do-hyun found the Empress in her war room, surrounded by floating images of battles and burning worlds. She looked older than she had 3 months ago. "Tireder. The Morali have attacked 3 of our supply stations," she said without greeting. 200 dead. They are calling themselves the true children of the collapse. They say humans have bewitched me. "I am sorry," Do-hyun said. It was all he could say. Sorry will not stop the tide. The Empress waved her hand, and the images changed. Now they showed a wave of darkness approaching the galaxy, closer than before. 50 years, perhaps less. And instead of preparing, my empire fights itself over pride and shame. She turned to face him. Her white eyes were heavy with exhaustion. "I need you to do something. I need you to speak to the assembly tomorrow. Representatives from all 400 worlds will be there. I need you to make them believe." "Believe what?" "That humans are worth following. That survival means more than pride. That the galaxy can unite against what is coming." Do-hyun felt his chest tighten. "I cannot do that. I am not a speaker. I am not a leader. I am nobody." "You are exactly what they need," the Empress said. "They do not need a king or a general or a prophet. They need someone ordinary. Someone who shows them that survival does not require being special. It just requires refusing to give up." Before Do-hyun could argue more, alarms began to sound. The attack came without warning. Assassins had entered the Imperial Spire. They were Morali rebels, warriors who had given their lives to kill the Empress and the humans she protected. They moved through the halls like water, killing guards and servants, leaving death behind them. Do-hyun was running before he knew what he was doing, not away from danger. Toward the Empress. He found her in the throne room, surrounded by her guards. But the guards were falling. The Morali were too fast, too deadly. Their weapons fired bolts of blue light that burned through armor like paper. One of the assassins broke through the line. He was tall for a Morali, his blue skin marked with scars from many battles. He raised his weapon at the Empress. Do-hyun did not think. He moved. He threw himself between the assassin and the Empress. The blue light hit him in the shoulder, and pain exploded through his body like fire and ice together. He fell to his knees but did not fall further. The assassin stared at him. The weapon had been set to kill. A Villani would be dead. A Kreeth would be dead. Any intelligent species in the galaxy would be dead. But Do-hyun was human. He stood up. Blood soaked his clothes. His arm would not move properly. The pain was worse than anything he had ever felt. But he stood up. Why? The assassin's voice was filled with confusion. You should be dead. Why are you standing? Do-hyun looked at him. He thought about his grandmother. He thought about all the stories she told about surviving war and famine and loss. He thought about what she always said, because getting up is what humans do, he said. And then he talked. He talked about his grandmother. About the war she survived. About the famine she lived through. About raising a child alone after her daughter died. About never giving up. Not once. Not ever. He talked about the other humans in their group. About grandmother Jisoo, who had started treating wounded Kreeth refugees because she could not stand to see anyone suffer. About Han Tae-young, who trained with Villani warriors every day and earned their respect through pure endurance. About young Choi Eun-bi, who had learned 3 alien languages in 3 months because she wanted to understand, to connect, to help. He talked about what it meant to be human. We are not special, he said. Blood dripped down his arm. His vision was getting dark at the edges. We are not strong, or fast, or smart. We just refuse to stop. We refuse to give up. We refuse to believe that the end is written. The assassin lowered his weapon. I was told you were gods, he said. Or demons. I was told you had bewitched our Empress with alien powers. I am a security guard from Seoul, Do-hyun said. I watched monitors for a living. I ate instant noodles every night. I talked to a stray cat because I had no friends. He took a step toward the assassin. His legs were shaking, but he kept standing. I am nobody special. But I am still standing. And that is all any of us can do. Stand up. Keep going. Refuse to fall. Okay. Resident of Danger. All teen stayed B. 17 a content. Okay. Come Tom. Talk to stayed during stayed B. The assassin dropped his weapon. Later, when the medics had treated his wound and the surviving assassins had been taken away, Do-hyun sat alone in his quarters. His shoulder was wrapped in bandages that glowed with alien healing technology. It still hurt, but he would live. Nari came to see him. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. But her voice was steady. The whole empire saw what you did, she said. Someone was recording. The video is everywhere now. I did not do anything special. You took a shot meant to kill. You stood back up. You talked an assassin into surrendering. She sat beside him and took his hand. That is exactly what special looks like. Do-hyun shook his head. I was just afraid. I did not want the Empress to die. I did not want any more death. Exactly. Nari squeezed his hand. You were afraid, and you acted anyway. That is what courage is. That is what the galaxy needs to see. She paused, then continued. You need to speak tomorrow. At the assembly. The Empire needs to hear your voice. I do not know what to say. Say what you said to the assassin. Say what your grandmother taught you. Say the truth. Do-hyun looked at the window, at the alien city glowing in the night, at the stars beyond that held a wave of destruction that was coming for all of them. I am still nobody special, he said. Yes, Nari agreed. And that is exactly why they need you. She kissed his forehead gently and left him alone with his thoughts. Do-hyun sat in the darkness for a long time. He thought about his grandmother, about her voice telling him to get up, always get up, about the life he had left behind on Earth, the monitors and the noodles, and the stray cat named General. He thought about what it meant to be human, and slowly, quietly. He began to plan what he would say. The Galactic Assembly was the largest gathering of intelligent beings in the known universe. Representatives from 400 worlds sat in a chamber that had been designed to make anyone who entered feel small. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above. The walls curved inward like the inside of a shell. Every seat was filled with creatures who had traveled across star systems to be here. And at the center of it all, on a platform that floated in the middle of the chamber, stood Park Do-hyun. He was terrified. His shoulder still hurt from the assassin's weapon. His hands were shaking. His throat was dry. He looked out at the thousands of faces watching him, alien eyes and colors he had no names for, and he wanted to run, but he did not run. He never ran. "I am not going to lie to you," he began. His voice came through translation devices across the chamber, turning his words into 100 different languages. "I am scared." The chamber went silent. Whatever they had expected from the Enduring One, it was not this. "I am scared of this room. I am scared of speaking to you. I am scared of the tide that is coming to destroy everything." He paused. 3 months ago, I was a security guard in Seoul. I watched monitors. I ate instant noodles. I talked to a stray cat because I did not have many friends. He saw confusion on the alien faces. "Good. Let them be confused. I am telling you this because I need you to understand something. I am not a symbol. I am not a hero. I am not a god or a savior or anything special. I am just a man, an ordinary man from an ordinary world." He touched his wounded shoulder. The pain was still there, a reminder of what had happened. 2 days ago, someone tried to kill your Empress. They shot me instead. The weapon should have killed me. It would have killed any of you. But I am human, and humans are stubborn. We do not die when we are supposed to. He looked across the chamber, finding the section where the Morali sat. Their blue faces were hard to read, but they were listening. "I do not blame the one who shot me. He believed he was doing the right thing. He believed humans were a lie, a trick, something to be feared. And I understand that fear. When something does not make sense, when it challenges everything you believe, fear is natural." He took a breath. "This was the hard part. Your Empress told you the truth about my people. 12,000 years ago, humans helped save your ancestors. Not because we were powerful. Not because we had advanced technology. We were living in caves, hunting with spears. We survived through pure stubbornness, and we sent signals into space that happened to help your dying ships." He spread his hands. "Some of you believe this makes us special. Some of you believe it makes us dangerous. Some of you refuse to believe it at all. But the truth does not care what you believe. The truth is the truth." He walked to the edge of the platform, closer to the audience. "My grandmother survived a war. She survived a famine. She raised my mother alone. And when my mother died, she raised me. She was not special. She was not a hero. She was a small woman who refused to stop. Every morning, no matter how hard things were, she got up and kept going." His voice grew stronger. "She told me something when I was young. She said, 'Do-hyun, fear is just your body telling you something matters. What you do next is who you are.'" I did not understand what she meant. I thought she was talking about small things, everyday things. He looked up at the darkness above, at the countless stars beyond. "Now I understand." She was talking about moments like this. Moments when everything seems impossible. Moments when the easy choice is to give up, to hide, to let fear win. He turned to face the section where the Villani nobles sat, the ones who wanted the Empress removed. "Your ancestors were ashamed because primitives survived what nearly destroyed them. They hid my world because they could not accept that stone tools and stubbornness beat their great technology." Some of the nobles shifted uncomfortably. "I understand that shame. But shame is not useful. Shame is just pride with its face turned away. It does not solve problems. It does not save lives. It just makes everything harder." He turned to face the Creeth, the insectoids who valued strength. You think humans are weak because we are small and soft and break easily. You are right. We are weak. A Kreeth warrior could tear me apart with their claws. But strength is not just about muscles and armor. Strength is about refusing to stop. And in that kind of strength, humans are the strongest species in the galaxy. He faced the Morali, the amphibians who had sent the assassin. You remember your own near extinction. You remember the suffering and the loss. You do not want to believe that primitives saved you because it makes your suffering feel smaller. But your suffering is not smaller. Your survival is not less important. We are all survivors here. We all carried our weight through the darkness. Finally, he turned to face the Empress. She sat in a special section above the chamber, watching him with her white eyes. The tide is coming, Do-hyun said. In 50 years, maybe less, it will reach this galaxy again. It will not care about your pride or your shame. It will not care about your wars or your rebellions. It will just come, like a wave, and it will wash away everything we have built unless we stand together. He walked back to the center of the platform. I do not know if we can stop the tide. I am a security guard, not a scientist. But I know this. My people have survived things we should not have survived. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We survived because we helped each other. We shared food when there was not enough. We carried the wounded when they could not walk. We refused to let each other fall. His voice filled the chamber now, strong and steady. That is what I am asking you to do. Not to follow me. Not to worship humans. Just to stop fighting each other. Just to stand together. Just to refuse to fall. He looked at the assembled representatives, at all the species and worlds and ancient civilizations gathered in one room. The tide is coming. I do not know if we can beat it. But I know what my grandmother would say. He straightened his shoulders, ignoring the pain. She would say, get up. Always get up. That is what it means to be alive. He paused. So, who is going to get up with us? For a long moment, nothing happened. The chamber was silent. Do-hyun felt his heart pounding, felt the sweat on his palms, felt the certainty that he had failed. Then the Empress rose from her seat. She did not speak. She just stood, her robes flowing around her, her white eyes fixed on Do-hyun. Beside her, a Kreeth Hive admiral rose. His chitin armor gleamed in the light. His mandibles clicked once, a sound of respect. A Morali elder rose, her blue skin marked with the patterns of 1,000 years. Then another. One by one, the representatives of 400 worlds stood up. Do-hyun watched them rise. He watched ancient enemies and bitter rivals and proud nobles all stand together. He watched the galaxy decide that survival mattered more than pride. And he thought about his grandmother, about her stories, about her voice telling him to get up. Always get up. She would have been proud. 50 years later, the hollow tide reached the galactic core. It found a civilization that had spent half a century preparing, not just with technology, though the technology was impressive, shield networks that spanned star systems, evacuation plans for billions of beings, underground shelters that could sustain life for centuries. But the technology was not what saved them. What saved them was something simpler: unity. The Vellani worked with the Kreeth, worked with the Morali, worked with 100 other species. Humans moved among them, teaching and learning, bridging gaps and solving conflicts. They were not leaders or rulers. They were examples. Examples of what it meant to keep going when everything said stop. The tide came. It was terrible. It was devastating. Worlds at the edge of the galaxy were lost. Billions fled from the darkness, but the shields held. The civilizations survived. The galaxy endured. On the anniversary of the tide's passing, a statue was unveiled on Keth Prime. It stood in the plaza before the Imperial Spire, where trillions could see it. The statue showed a man in simple clothes. Not armor, not robes, just the uniform of a security guard from Earth. One hand was extended, palm up, as if offering help. The inscription at the base was simple: "We endured." Together, and below it, In smaller letters, a quote from a grandmother who had survived a war. Fear tells you it matters. What you do next is who you are. Do-hyun never returned to Earth. There was too much work to do. Too many people who needed help. Too many bridges to build. But sometimes, late at night, he looked up at the stars and thought about Seoul, about his old job, about the stray cat named General. He wondered if the cat was still alive. He hoped someone was feeding it. Nari found him on the balcony one night, years after the tide had passed. She was older now, gray in her hair, lines around her eyes. But she still looked at him the same way she had when they first met in that crystal cell. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Instant noodles," he said. She laughed. "Of all the things in the galaxy, you think about noodles?" They were good noodles. She took his hand and stood beside him, looking up at the stars. "You saved the galaxy," she said quietly. "You know that, right? That speech changed everything. You brought them together." Do-hyun shook his head. "I just told them what my grandmother taught me. I did not do anything special." "I know." She squeezed his hand. "That is exactly what made it special." They stood together in the darkness, two ordinary people from a small blue planet, watching stars that would burn for billions of years because they had refused to stop. Because getting up was what humans did. Always.